Hello, in this video I'd like to get back into the archiving topic. In the first video I covered an overview of your different options for archiving in Worldox and also went over how you set up a secondary archive location, and we did that for the client files cabinet. So now I'm going to set up manual archiving, but I just want a select group of users to be able to archive files and restore files from the archive. So we're going to control that through group security. So I'm going to go into group security in WD admin. And the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that the group everyone doesn't have permissions to the archiving feature. And if they do, then I want to block that. So with the group everyone highlighted, I'm going to go into features and I'll just scroll down until I see archive. And there's two archive features, archive move to and archive restore. And right now, the everyone group does have permissions to these, so we want to block that. So I'm just going to check both these two archives while I have everyone highlighted in the left and features in the center, and then I'll hit block, hit continue. Now with everyone highlighted in the left, if I click on features blocked, I should see the two archive options in there, and they are. Now what I need to do is create a group that I'm going to allow access to those archive features. So with the group everyone highlighted in the left panel, I'm going to hit the create button. I'm just going to call this group archive and just take the defaults. Now make sure archive is highlighted in your left panel. We're going to highlight features in the center panel. We're going to scroll down and we see these two archive move to and restore, and we're going to allow those. Now with archive highlighted in the left, just click on features allowed and we should see these archive move to and archive restore features, and now we know we've granted access to that group. Now we have to select the users that are going to be a member of this group so they can have permissions to these features. So with archive highlighted in the left, I'm going to click on users in the center panel and then click add user. And I'm going to select the two users that I want handling the archiving and unarchiving of documents at our site. So now that I have these two users in that group, I'm going to click on the save button and save my changes. Now I'm going to go ahead and switch over to another computer and log in as one of these two users and start the Worldox client and show you how you would manually archive or manually restore archive files. Okay, so now I'm logged on to a PC with one of those users that we made a member of the archive group, and I have the Worldox client running. So the first thing you do is need to find the files that you want to manually archive, and that could be done by conducting a search or navigating to a folder, or finding the files that way. And then once you find them, you're going to tag the files and then archive them. The one thing you want to be cautious of when you're archiving manually is you don't want to grab too many files at a time. So don't be tagging like 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 files in one batch and trying to archive them. It's not really intended to do that. If you're looking at trying to do big batches like that of archiving, you really need to go take a look at the bulk archiving connector and get some more information on that. But let's say I've had a particular matter that just closed and I want to archive manually that entire matter. I can just navigate to that matter folder, however way you want to do it. I'm going to do it through the cabinet browsing. And once I'm in this matter folder, I'll just tag all the files. I can just do that by doing Control A. And once you have the files tagged that you want to archive, you can just pull down the File menu and choose Archive Move To, or you can right-click, and if you don't see Archive in here, go to the More, Archive, move to Archive, and select it from there. Clarification will pop up asking if you want the 11 checked or the highlighted file. I want the 11 checked. And then it asks you, do you want to archive the files? And I'm going to say yes. And that'll go through the process of archiving and physically moving those files from their current location to the new location. And then if you want the details, you can hit the drop-down list Click OK. At this point, notice those files are no longer in that matter folder. They're now in the archive folder. Now, to get to the archive, a couple of methods. One, you can use your cabinets and go to the archive location here. So underneath my client files, I see my archive, and it's going to look the same whether you take the default location or set up a secondary location. The way you see it through the interface will look the same. It's not going to look any different. In this case, we're set up with a secondary location on another network share, but it's going to look the same as if it was a default. Then I see this client folder in here. I go to the matter folder, and here's all the files that have been archived. Notice the little read-only icon in the version column to let you know that you can't edit these files once they're archived. So you can view them and print them and do things like that, but you can't work on them. You'd have to restore them from the archive to actually be able to work on them. Now, a second way that you can get to files in the archive is by doing a search. And so just choose your, in this case, the client files find template. And then on the search what button, you have an archive here. So if you just want to search just the archive, you can change it from active to archive and click OK, and that's going to search it. Now, if you set this up using the default archive location, the indexer will already be indexing it. And right now we could search the archive. Since we chose a secondary archive location when we first started setting this up in video number 1, you need to build a separate set of databases on those archives. So after I show you how to restore files from the archive, I'm going to switch over to the indexer PC and show you where that database is and how you build it. So let me cancel out of the search here, and I'm going to go back to cabinets and go back to that archive location. And let's say I wanted to unarchive these documents. Now, you may, if you want to unarchive all of them, just Control A and tag all of them. If you just want to unarchive select documents, just tag the ones that you want to. So if I just want to unarchive these ones that I have tagged, right click. Notice you just have the archive, move to archive on the right click until you go to more and archive, restore. Until you use this once, it won't pop up on the initial click menu. And then you also have it from the file menu, archive, restore. Right, the 5 checked. And I'm going to leave some in here so when we get to the databases to build, there's still some files in the archive to build the databases against. At this point, it's going to restore those files and any versions they have. And now they'll be back into production. So if I go back into the production folder, these files are back in here. So that's how you would manually archive files, and if you needed to manually restore files from the archive, those would be the steps that you'd go through. Now I'm going to switch over to the indexer PC and show you how you would build your databases on that secondary archive location. I'm on my indexer PC now, and I'm in my indexer console, which is the wsindex.exe file. And I can see here's my production resource that has all my cabinets on it, and the indexer's running, it's in posting mode and keeping the databases up to date. And here's my new archive share. So this is the archive that I set up on the network that I set my secondary locations to point to. But notice there's nothing there. It's because I haven't built the databases yet. So the very first time after you do your initial archive of files to the archive the secondary archive location, just go in here into your indexer console, highlight or check this archive location, do a database update, and check the box for init in both, and click OK. I'll let this run on the service, and then go ahead and just let it run. Now this is going to go very fast because I only have a few files in there once it kicks off, but if you have a lot of files in there, it'll take a while to do that initial build. Then once you get this built, you really only need to update this database every time you archive more documents. So it's not like you have to update it every day, like with your production files, but just after you're done. Now, okay, you can see it's already finished. And put this into start mode if I want to start it and run it in posting mode. If you have an indexer scheduled, so like one night a week you run an update, then you'll need to run this in posting mode for it to pick up on that schedule. And now I can hide this. It'll be running up to date. So that's how you'd set up your databases and do your initial build on it after you've archived. And then once you've done that, then you can search your secondary location. And once again, that's just an additional step you need to do if you set up a secondary archive location. If you use the default archive location, your files are going to be still on that same share that your production files are on, so they're going to use the same set of databases and the indexers automatically be indexing them. But if you set up a secondary location, then you do need to set up those secondary databases and run that initial build on them, and then update it periodically as you archive more files. So this will wrap up the topic on manual. Then I'll have another video that I'll go into document retention and how you set up the document retention policies.